Jake Morrison sat alone at a corner table in the Nexus Tavern. The dim lights cast shadows across his tired face. He wore his Earth military uniform, but the collar was open and his sleeves were rolled up. 3 months of fighting on distant planets had left him exhausted. Now he was finally on shore leave at Crossroads Station. The tavern was full of strange creatures from across the galaxy. Some had scales, others had fur. A few glowed with their own light. They all came here to drink, trade stories, and forget about the war that was tearing the galaxy apart. Jake took a long drink from his whiskey glass and watched them all. He did not want to think about the battles he had fought. He did not want to remember the friends he had lost. The whiskey helped, but not enough. Tomorrow, he would have to report back to his ship. Tonight, he just wanted to be left alone. A soft voice broke through his thoughts. "May I sit here?" Jake looked up and saw the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She was not human, that much was clear. Her skin was a soft, blue color like the sky back on Earth just after sunset. Silver markings ran along her temples and down her neck in patterns that seemed to move in the flickering light. Her eyes were large and dark, filled with tiny points of light like stars. "Sure," Jake said, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. "I am Jake." "I am Zara," she said, sitting down gracefully. She wore simple clothes, not a uniform like most of the military people in the station. "You look like someone who has seen too much fighting." Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That obvious, huh?" "Your eyes," Zara said simply. "They hold the weight of lost friends." The bartender, a large creature with 4 arms, came over to their table. Zara ordered something in a language Jake did not recognize. When it arrived, the drink glowed a soft green color in her glass. "What is that?" Jake asked. "Altarian moon wine," Zara said. "It helps wash away bad memories, at least for a little while." They began to talk. Jake found himself telling her things he had never told anyone, about his small town in Montana where he grew up, about why he had joined the military when the war started, about how he missed the simple things from Earth like morning coffee and the sound of rain on his roof. Zara listened carefully to every word. She asked questions that showed she really wanted to understand. When Jake asked about her home, she spoke of crystal cities that caught sunlight and turned it into music. She told him about libraries that held the wisdom of 1,000 generations, but when he asked what she did for work, she became quiet and changed the subject. "Why are you here?" Jake asked. "At this station, I mean. Sometimes we must travel, far from home to understand what home truly means," Zara said. She took a sip of her glowing drink. "And sometimes we meet people who show us that home is not always a place." The hours passed quickly. Jake found himself laughing for the first time in months. Zara had a way of making even simple stories seem magical. When she talked about her world, Jake could almost see the crystal spires and hear the singing stones, she described. The tavern grew more crowded as the night went on. Traders from a dozen worlds mixed with soldiers on leave and merchants looking for deals. The air filled with smoke from various alien substances and the babble of different languages. Then trouble started. A group of Vorthak miners at the bar had been drinking heavily. They were large, hairy creatures with bad tempers and worse manners. They began arguing with some human traders about shipping routes and territory rights. The argument got louder and more aggressive. "Humans think they own everything," one of the Vorthaks growled, his voice carrying across the tavern. "You expand like a disease across the galaxy." "We expand because we work hard," one of the human traders shot back. "Maybe if your people spent less time drinking and more time building, you would have something worth defending." Jake saw the Vorthak reach for the weapon on his belt. Without thinking, he stood up and moved to put himself between Zara and the brewing fight. The first punch was thrown a second later. The tavern erupted into chaos. Tables flew through the air. Glasses shattered. Creatures roared and shouted in languages Jake did not understand. He kept one arm around Zara, protecting her from the flying debris, while using the other to block a chair that came sailing toward their heads. "This way," Jake shouted over the noise, leading Zara toward a side exit. But as they moved, he saw a young human trader go down under the fists of two angry Vorthax. The kid could not have been more than 20 years old. Jake let go of Zara and dove into the fight. His military training took over. He moved with precision and speed, striking pressure points and using the aliens' own momentum against them. In less than a minute, both Vorthax were on the ground unconscious. The kid was hurt but alive. Jake helped him to his feet while Zara appeared with a medical kit from behind the bar. She worked quickly and skillfully, cleaning wounds and applying bandages. Her hands were steady and sure, like someone who had done this many times before. "Thank you," the young trader said when Zara finished treating his cuts. "Both of you." Station. Security arrived a few minutes later and began sorting out the mess. Jake and Zara slipped away from the crowd and found themselves alone in a quiet corridor. "You fight well," Zara said, looking at Jake with new interest. "Most civilians would have run from that fight." "Most civilians do not get trained by the Earth military," Jake replied. Then he realized what he had just revealed. "I know what you meant," Zara said softly. She stepped closer to him. "You are a soldier. I could tell from the moment I saw you. Does that bother you?" Jake asked. "No," Zara said. "It makes you brave, and brave people are rare in this galaxy." They walked slowly back toward the docking areas where Jake's quarters were located. The station's artificial night cycle had begun, dimming the lights and creating a more intimate atmosphere. They talked quietly about small things, but Jake could feel something growing between them. When they reached the door to Jake's temporary quarters, they both stopped. The air between them seemed charged with electricity. "I should go," Zara said, but she did not move away. "You should," Jake agreed, but he did not step back either. Instead, Zara reached up and touched his face gently. Her fingers were warm despite her blue skin. "You are a good man, Jake Morrison. The galaxy needs more like you." Before Jake could respond, she kissed him. It was soft and sweet, and filled with a sadness he did not understand. When they separated, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Will I see you again?" Jake asked. "Perhaps," Zara said. "The galaxy is vast, but sometimes fate brings people together more than once." She walked away down the corridor, leaving Jake standing at his door with the taste of starlight on his lips. He watched until she disappeared around a corner, then went inside his quarters. As he lay down on his narrow bunk, Jake smiled for the first time in months. Tomorrow would bring new battles and new sorrows, but tonight had given him something he had almost forgotten existed. Hope. Jake woke to the harsh sound of his communicator buzzing. Red lights flashed on the small device, which meant emergency status. He rolled out of his bunk and grabbed the communicator, still thinking about the blue-skinned woman from the night before. Admiral Carter's face appeared on the screen. The old man looked grim and tired. Behind him, Jake could see the busy command center of Crossroads Station with officers running back and forth. "All human personnel report to emergency stations immediately," the Admiral said. "This is not a drill, we have a situation." Jake dressed quickly in his full uniform. As he walked through the corridors of the station, he noticed the change in atmosphere. Where yesterday there had been relaxed traders and off-duty soldiers, now everyone moved with purpose and fear. Alien species that normally mixed freely were clustering in their own groups. Something big was happening. The human command center was packed when Jake arrived. Admiral Carter stood in front of a large display screen showing the space around Crossroads Station. Red dots marked the positions of ships, and there were a lot of them. "Gentlemen and ladies," Admiral Carter began, his voice carrying across the crowded room. 3 hours ago, our long-range sensors detected a massive alien fleet approaching this station. The fleet consists of over 300 ships, including dreadnoughts larger than anything we have ever seen. A murmur went through the crowd. Jake felt his stomach drop. 300 ships was more than the entire human fleet in this sector. Intelligence reports indicate this is the combined might of the Altarian Empire, the Admiral continued. The same species that has been attacking our colonies for the past 8 months. Their tactics and technology are far superior to ours. In every engagement, they have completely destroyed our forces. Jake thought about Zara and her blue skin, her silver markings. Altarian. His heart began to race, but not from fear. From a terrible understanding that was beginning to form in his mind. Our tactical analysis shows we are completely outgunned, Admiral Carter said. We have 12 ships. They have 300. We have no choice but to attempt negotiations. If we can secure safe passage for human civilians, we might save some lives. The Admiral touched controls on his console, and the display changed to show detailed images of the alien ships. The flagship was enormous, shaped like a crystal spear with silver decorations along its hull. Jake stared at it and felt his blood turn cold. This is the personal vessel of Fleet Admiral Zarath Veltar, Admiral Carter said, pointing at the flagship. Intelligence calls her the Silver Death. She has personally overseen the destruction of 7 human colonies. Her tactical genius is unmatched. She has never lost a battle. Jake stopped breathing. Silver markings. The same species. The same patterns he had traced with his fingers on Zara's skin just hours before. It could not be a coincidence. Sir, Lieutenant Brady asked from the front row. What do we know about this fleet, Admiral? Very little, Admiral Carter replied. She appeared 2 years ago and quickly rose through the Altarian ranks. Some reports suggest she is royalty of some kind. What we do know is that she shows no mercy to human forces. Every battle ends the same way. Total victory for the Altarians, total destruction for us. Jake's hands began to shake. The woman he had kissed, the woman who had looked at him with such kindness and understanding, was humanity's greatest enemy. The irony was so cruel it made him feel sick. The alien delegation has requested permission to board the station for negotiations. Admiral Carter continued. I will lead our diplomatic team. I need volunteers for the security detail. Without thinking, Jake raised his hand. I volunteer, sir. Admiral Carter looked at him. Morrison, you just came off 3 months of combat duty. You should rest. With respect, sir, I want to see these aliens for myself, Jake said. He had to know for certain. He had to see if his worst fears were true. Very well, the Admiral said. Report to Docking Bay 7 in 1 hour. Full dress uniform and sidearms. The hour passed slowly. Jake stood in the docking bay with 11 other human soldiers, watching the massive alien shuttle approach through the transparent aluminum windows. The shuttle was beautiful in a deadly way, all curves and flowing lines with the same silver decorations he had seen on the flagship. The shuttle landed with barely a whisper. Steam hissed from cooling systems as the boarding ramp extended. Jake gripped his weapon tighter and tried to prepare himself for what he might see. 12 alien soldiers walked down the ramp first. They wore power armor that seemed to be made of living metal, flowing and shifting with their movements. Energy weapons that looked more like works of art than tools of war were attached to their arms. They moved with perfect coordination, like dancers performing a deadly ballet. Then she appeared. Jake's world collapsed around him. It was Zara, but not the mysterious woman from the tavern. This was Fleet Admiral Zarath Veltar in her full military glory. She wore a uniform that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, with silver rank insignia that matched the markings on her skin. A ceremonial helmet covered most of her face, but Jake could see enough to know it was her. She was taller than he remembered, standing with the perfect posture of someone who commanded fleets and conquered worlds. Every movement spoke of absolute authority and deadly competence. This was not the gentlewoman who had asked thoughtful questions about Earth culture. This was the Silver Death herself. The alien delegation was escorted to the main conference hall. Jake marched with the other human guards, trying to keep his face blank and professional. Inside, he was screaming. Admiral Carter sat at a large table with his diplomatic team. Across from them, the alien commander took her place. When she removed her helmet, Jake saw her face clearly for the first time since the night before. She was even more beautiful than he remembered, but now that beauty seemed dangerous and cold. I am Fleet Admiral Zarath Veltar of the Altarian Empire, she said. Her voice carried the same musical quality Jake remembered, but now it held the ring of absolute command. I come to offer terms for the peaceful resolution of this conflict. We are honored by your presence, Admiral Carter replied, though his voice suggested he felt anything but honored. What terms do you propose? Complete. Withdrawal of all human military forces from the contested systems, Zareth said without emotion. Surrender of all weapons and military equipment. In exchange, civilian populations will be relocated to worlds of your choosing within human space. That is not negotiation, Admiral Carter said, his face growing red. That is surrender. It is survival, Zareth replied calmly. Your species has fought bravely, but you cannot win this war. I offer you the chance to preserve human lives. Many of my officers would prefer a different solution. Jake stood at attention with the other guards, but he could not stop watching Zareth. Once, she glanced in his direction, and for just a moment, her perfect composure seemed to crack. Her eyes widened slightly and her hand moved to her throat as if she had trouble breathing. But the moment passed so quickly that anyone else would have missed it. Your terms are impossible, Admiral Carter said. Humanity will never surrender. Then humanity will be destroyed, Zareth replied. I have 300 ships, you have 12. The mathematics are simple. There must be another way, one of the human diplomats said. Some compromise we can reach. Zareth stood up from her chair. Even across the room, Jake could see the power she radiated. I did not come here to compromise. I came to offer you the only chance your species will have. Accept my terms or face the consequences. She looked around the room, her gaze lingering on Jake for just a second longer than the others. I will give you 6 hours to consider. After that, my fleet will begin operations against this station and any human ships in the area. The alien delegation left as quickly as they had come. Jake watched Zareth walk away, her perfect military bearing, never wavering. But he had seen something in her eyes during that brief moment of recognition. Fear? Regret? He could not tell. After the aliens were gone, Admiral Carter slumped in his chair. 6 hours, he said to no one in particular. 6 hours to find a miracle. Jake stood in the empty conference hall after everyone else had left, staring at the chair where Zareth had sat. The woman he had kissed 12 hours ago commanded the fleet that would destroy them all. The woman who had shown such curiosity about human culture was preparing to wipe it out. He thought about her words from the night before. Sometimes we meet people who show us that home is not always a place. What did that mean now? Had it all been a lie? Some kind of intelligence-gathering mission? But Jake remembered the kiss, the sadness in her eyes, the gentle way she had treated the wounded traitor. That had been real. He was certain of it. Which meant the woman he had fallen for and the commander who threatened humanity were the same person, and that made everything infinitely more complicated. The 6 hours passed like a nightmare that would not end. Jake spent most of the time walking through the corridors of Crossroads Station, watching as human families prepared for the worst. Children cried while their parents packed what few belongings they could carry. Merchants tried to sell their goods at panic prices before the station fell. Jake could not stop thinking about Zareth. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw 2 different women. The gentle stranger who had listened to his stories about Montana with such interest. The cold commander who could order the death of everyone on this station without showing any emotion. How could they be the same person? Admiral Carter called all senior officers to a final briefing 1 hour before the deadline. The command center felt like a tomb. Everyone knew they were going to die, but they had to try something anyway. Our answer to the Altarian terms is no, Admiral Carter announced. Humanity does not surrender. However, we will request one final meeting to discuss terms for civilian evacuation. Jake raised his hand. Sir, I request permission to be part of the security detail again. Morrison, you have done enough, the Admiral said. Stay here and help coordinate the defense. Sir, I need to be there, Jake insisted. Something in his voice made Admiral Carter look at him more carefully. Why? The Admiral asked. Jake could not tell him the truth. I want to look our enemy in the face when we tell them no. Admiral Carter studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. But this time, if shooting starts, protect the civilians first. The alien shuttle arrived exactly on schedule. Jake stood with the human guards in the docking bay, watching as the same 12 armored soldiers emerged. They moved like machines built for war, each step perfectly timed with the others. Zarath appeared last, and this time she was not wearing her helmet. Jake could see her face clearly from the moment she stepped onto the station. She looked directly at him for just a second, and he saw something flash in her eyes. Recognition, fear, maybe even relief. The meeting took place in the same conference hall as before. This time the atmosphere was even more tense. Everyone knew this was the last chance for a peaceful solution. "Admiral Carter," Zarath said as she took her seat, "have you considered my offer?" "We have," Admiral Carter replied. "And our answer is no. Humanity will not surrender." "I see." Zarath showed no emotion at all. "Then you have chosen death over wisdom." "We have chosen freedom over slavery," Admiral Carter shot back. "But we do request safe passage for non-military personnel. Surely your people have some concept of honor." For the first time, Zarath seemed to hesitate. "Honor?" she repeated, as if testing the word. "Yes, we understand honor, but honor does not feed starving populations or provide homes for the displaced." "What do you mean?" asked Dr. Phillips, the station's chief medical officer. Zarath looked at her for a long moment. "My people are dying, Doctor. Our homeworld can no longer support our population. We need new worlds to colonize. Humans are in our way." "There are thousands of empty worlds," Dr. Phillips said. "Why not colonize those?" "Because they cannot be made suitable for our people without technology we do not possess," Zarath replied. "But worlds that humans have already prepared." She did not finish the sentence. Jake felt a shock of understanding. This was not just conquest for the sake of power. The Altarians were refugees, fighting for survival just like humans were. It did not make their actions right, but it made them understandable. The negotiations continued for another hour, but everyone knew they were going nowhere. Admiral Carter offered various compromises, but Zarath rejected them all. Finally, she stood up to leave. "You have made your choice," she said. "My fleet will begin operations in 1 hour. I suggest you use that time to prepare your souls for whatever gods you worship." As the alien delegation prepared to leave, Jake made a decision that could cost him his life. During the confusion of everyone standing and preparing to escort the aliens out, he slipped away from the main group. He knew the layout of the station better than the alien guards did, and he used service corridors to get ahead of them. Jake waited in a side corridor that he knew the alien delegation would pass through on their way back to the docking bay. When he heard their footsteps approaching, his heart began to race. This was either very brave or very stupid. The 12 armored guards passed first, their energy weapons scanning for threats. Then Zarath appeared, walking alone behind them. Jake stepped out of his hiding place. "Zara," he said quietly. She stopped so suddenly that her guards almost ran into her. For a moment, the entire corridor was silent except for the hum of the station's life support systems. Then Zarath raised her hand, and her guards continued walking without her. They were alone. "You should not be here," Zarath said. Her voice was soft like it had been in the tavern, but Jake could hear the strain in it. "Neither should you," Jake replied. "But here we are." They stood facing each other across 3 feet of empty space that might as well have been the entire galaxy. Zarath looked exactly like the woman he had kissed 12 hours ago, but everything else had changed. "Did you know?" Jake asked. "Last night. Did you know who I was?" "I knew you were military," Zarath said. "Your bearing, your reflexes, the way you protected me during the fight. Only a trained soldier moves like that. But you did not know I was human military." Zarath was quiet for a long moment. "No," she finally said. "I did not know until this morning when I saw the fleet roster. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Corps, decorated for valor on Kepler 442b. "So what was last night?" Jake asked. The hurt in his voice was clear. "Some kind of intelligence gathering?" "No." The word came out sharp and angry. "No, it was not that at all." "Then what was it?" Zarath looked away from him, staring at the metal walls of the corridor. It was a mistake, she said quietly. A moment of weakness when I forgot who I am and what I must do. Bullshit, Jake said, stepping closer. I saw you last night, Zara. The real you. The woman who asked about Earth music and worried about wounded strangers. That was not weakness. That was humanity. I am not human, Zareth said, but her voice was breaking. I am the crown princess of the Altarian Empire. I command fleets and conquer worlds. I do not have the luxury of personal feelings. Crown princess? Jake felt another shock. She was not just a military commander. She was royalty. My father rules the empire, but I will inherit it one day, Zareth said. The survival of my people rests on my shoulders. I cannot let personal attachments cloud my judgment. Attachments? Jake moved even closer. Is that what I am to you? Zareth finally looked at him again, and Jake saw tears in her star-filled eyes. You are the most dangerous person I have ever met, she whispered. Why? Because you make me want to believe there is another way. Jake reached out and touched her face just like she had done to him the night before. Her skin was warm and soft, and she leaned into his touch despite herself. Maybe there is another way, Jake said. Maybe our species do not have to be enemies. You do not understand, Zareth said, but she did not pull away from his touch. My people are dying. We need worlds to live on. Your species already has those worlds. The galaxy is huge, Jake said. There has to be a solution that does not involve genocide. I have thought about it for months, Zareth said. There is no other way. Have you? Have you really tried to find another way? Or have you just accepted what your advisors and generals tell you? Before Zareth could answer, they heard footsteps approaching. Her guards had noticed she was missing and were coming back to find her. Jake stepped back, and Zareth immediately became the cold commander again. Stand down, she told her guards when they rounded the corner. The human was attempting to gather intelligence. His initiative should be commended. Admiral Carter appeared behind the guards, his face red with anger. Morrison, what the hell do you think you are doing? Sir, I was trying to get information about their fleet positions, Jake lied smoothly. By talking to their commander alone? Admiral Carter looked like he wanted to shoot Jake himself. Sometimes the direct approach works, sir, Jake said. Zareth stepped forward. Your soldier showed courage in attempting to gain tactical advantage, she said to Admiral Carter. He should be rewarded, not punished. Admiral Carter looked confused. You are defending him? I respect warriors who take risks for their people, Zareth said, even when those people are my enemies. She looked at Jake one last time and he saw something in her eyes that had not been there before. Doubt, uncertainty, hope. 1 hour, she said to Admiral Carter. Then this station and everyone on it will be destroyed. As she walked away with her guards, Jake realized something important had changed. The woman who had entered that corridor was sure of her path and her duty. The woman who left was not. Admiral Carter grabbed Jake's arm. What did you say to her? I told her the truth, sir, Jake said, that humanity will never surrender. But that was not the whole truth. What Jake had really done was plant a seed of doubt in the mind of humanity's greatest enemy. Whether that seed would grow into something that could save them all remained to be seen. The clock was ticking, and in less than an hour they would have their answer. Admiral Carter dragged Jake into a private office and slammed the door. His face was red with anger and confusion. What the hell was that about, Morrison? The Admiral demanded. You talked to the enemy commander alone and she defended you? That does not just happen by accident. Jake stood at attention, trying to think of what to say. He could not tell Admiral Carter the truth. No one would believe that he had spent a romantic evening with humanity's greatest enemy. Even if they did believe it, he would be court-martialed for treason. Sir, I thought if I could get her talking, she might reveal something useful about their fleet, Jake said. And did she? Jake thought about what Zareth had said about her, dying people. She mentioned that they need the worlds humans have colonized. It is not just conquest, sir. They are refugees. Admiral Carter stared at him. Refugees? The intelligence reports never mentioned that. Maybe intelligence was wrong. Sir, the Admiral paced back and forth in the small office. Even if that is true, it does not change anything. They are still going to kill everyone on this station in... He checked his watch. 37 minutes. Sir, what if we could offer them an alternative? Like what? We cannot just give them our colonies. What if we did not have to? What if there was a way for both species to benefit? Admiral Carter stopped pacing and looked at Jake suspiciously. Morrison, you are talking like you have been thinking about this for a long time. Why? Before Jake could answer, alarms began, blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red in the corridors. Over the intercom, they heard the voice of the station commander. All personnel to emergency stations. Long-range sensors detect alien ships moving into attack formation. This is not a drill. Admiral Carter rushed to the door. Come on, Morrison. Time to die like soldiers. Jake followed him to the command center, but his mind was racing. There had to be something he could do. Some way to reach Zarath before it was too late. But she was on her flagship, surrounded by her fleet. Even if he could get a message to her, would she listen? The command center was chaos. Officers shouted orders and reports flew back and forth. The main display showed the Altarian fleet spreading out around Crossroads Station like the petals of a deadly flower. The human ships were moving to defensive positions, but everyone knew it was hopeless. Incoming transmission from the Altarian flagship, reported Lieutenant Kim, the communications officer. Put it on screen, Admiral Carter ordered. Zarath's face appeared on the main display. She was wearing her full ceremonial armor now, and her expression was cold as space itself. Behind her, Jake could see the bridge of her ship, with dozens of alien officers working at control stations that looked more like works of art than military equipment. Admiral Carter, Zarath said, her voice carrying clearly through the speakers. Your time has expired. Prepare for the consequences of your choice. Fleet Admiral, Admiral Carter replied. I ask you one last time to allow the evacuation of civilians. Civilians who will grow up to be soldiers, Zarath said. Civilians who will rebuild your military and continue this war. I cannot allow that to happen. Jake watched her face on the screen, looking for any sign of the woman he had held in his arms just hours before. But he saw nothing. It was like looking at a beautiful statue carved from ice. All ships, prepare to engage, Zarath continued. Target military vessels first, then the station itself. Show no mercy. The transmission ended, and the command center fell silent except for the sound of breathing and the hum of equipment. Everyone was waiting for the end. Incoming fighters, someone reported. They are coming in fast. On the tactical display, Jake could see dozens of small Altarian ships racing toward the station. The human defenders moved to intercept, but there were too many enemies and not enough humans. Return fire, Admiral Carter ordered. All ships, engage at will. The battle began in earnest. Through the transparent aluminum windows of the command center, Jake could see flashes of light as weapons fired and ships exploded. The station shook as alien missiles struck its outer hull. Jake made his decision. While everyone else was focused on the battle, he slipped away from the command center and headed for the communications array. If he could send a message directly to Zarath's ship, maybe he could reach her. Maybe he could remind her of who she really was beneath all that armor and duty. The communications center was almost empty. Most of the technicians had been called to damage control stations. Jake sat down at a console and began working. His hands flew over the controls as he tried to establish a private channel to the Altarian flagship. It took him 10 minutes to break through their security and another 5 to figure out how to reach Zarath's personal communicator. When her face finally appeared on his small screen, she looked shocked to see him. Jake? How are you? She began, then her expression hardened. You should not be contacting me. I had to, Jake said. The station shook again as more weapons, fire hit it. This is not you, Zara. The woman I met last night would not murder children. The woman you met last night was a fool, Zarath replied. But Jake could see pain in her eyes. She let her emotions cloud her judgment. No, she was real. She was the best part of you. Jake leaned closer to the screen. You told me about your crystal cities and your singing stones. You spoke of wisdom and beauty. Is this what your ancestors would have wanted? Is this the legacy they left you? My ancestors are dead, Zareth said, but her voice was shaking now. My people are dying. I must save them. By becoming monsters? By doing what is necessary? Jake could see that she was fighting with herself. The cold commander and the gentle woman were at war inside her head. There has to be another way, Jake said. You are too intelligent and too good to believe that genocide is the only solution. I have studied this problem for years, Zareth said. I have considered every option. This is the only path that ensures my people's survival. Have you considered working together with humans instead of destroying them? Zareth stared at him through the screen. What do you mean? Your people have technology humans do not have. Humans have resources and knowledge your people need. What if instead of fighting over the same worlds, we work together to create new ones? That is impossible. Why? Because your advisors told you so. Because it has never been tried before? Jake's passion was evident in his voice. Humans are good at impossible things, Zara. We went from riding horses to flying between stars in less than 200 years. We turned dead rocks into garden worlds. We built cities that float in space. Give us a challenge that seems impossible, and we will find a way. Zareth was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the battle continued to rage. Jake could hear explosions, and the sound of metal tearing as the station took more damage. Even if such cooperation were possible, Zareth finally said, my officers would never accept it. They see humans as inferior beings who must be eliminated. Some of them might feel that way, Jake agreed. Just like some humans see all aliens as enemies. But not all of them. You could change their minds. You are their leader. I am their princess, not their dictator. I cannot simply order them to make peace with their enemies. No. But you can show them a better way. You can be the leader who chooses wisdom over war. Jake paused as another explosion shook the station. What would your father say if he knew you had the chance to save both our species but chose death? Instead? For the first time since the battle began, Zareth looked uncertain. My father, he always taught me that a true leader protects their people at any cost. Exactly. Protect them. Do not turn them into killers and conquerors. Show them how to build instead of destroy. The communication channel suddenly filled with static. Jake could hear other voices speaking in the Altarian language, urgent and demanding. Zareth looked away from the camera, listening to something he could not hear. I have to go, she said when she looked back at him. My fleet commanders are demanding to know why the attack has not begun. Zara, please, just think about what I said. There is another way. The screen went dark, leaving Jake alone in the communications center. Around him, the battle continued. But he noticed something strange. The Altarian attack seemed to have slowed down. Ships that should have been pressing their advantage were holding back. It was as if someone had ordered them to pause. Jake ran, back to the command center, where Admiral Carter was directing the defense of the station. Sir, what is the tactical situation? Jake asked. Admiral Carter looked confused. Strange thing, Morrison. The aliens seem to have stopped their attack. They are holding position just outside our weapons range. Why would they do that? I have no idea. Maybe they are waiting for reinforcements, though God knows they do not need them. Jake looked at the tactical display and felt a spark of hope. Maybe his words had reached Zareth after all. Maybe she was struggling with the same doubts and questions that had kept him awake all night. The question was, what would she decide? Outside the station, 300 alien warships waited in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready to deliver death to everyone aboard Crossroads Station. But for some reason, they were not firing. In the silence between heartbeats, the fate of two species hung in the balance. For 3 hours, the Altarian fleet held position around Crossroads Station. No one fired a shot. The silence was more terrifying than battle would have been. Everyone knew that something was happening aboard the alien flagship, but no one knew what. Jake paced the command center like a caged animal. Every few minutes he checked the communications array, hoping for another message from Zarath. But there was nothing except silence from the alien fleet. Admiral Carter stood at the tactical display, studying the alien formation. "I do not understand." He muttered. "They could have destroyed us hours ago. What are they waiting for?" "Maybe they are having technical problems," suggested Lieutenant Kim. 300 ships all having technical problems at the same time? Admiral Carter shook his head. "No, something else is happening here." Jake knew what was happening, but he could not say anything. Somewhere on that flagship, Zarath was fighting the biggest battle of her life. Not against human forces, but against her own doubts and the expectations of her people. The waiting ended when a new transmission came from the Altarian flagship. But this time it was not Zarath who appeared on the main screen. It was another Altarian, an older male with silver hair and scars across his face. "I am Admiral Kethvar, second in command of the Imperial Fleet," the alien said. His voice was cold and full of rage. "I speak for the true loyal officers of the Empire." Admiral Carter stepped forward. "Where is Fleet Admiral Zarath?" "The Princess has been relieved of command due to temporary confusion," Kethvar replied. "She will not be making any more decisions regarding this operation." Jake felt his heart sink. Zarath's own officers had turned against her. Whatever she had been planning, it was too late now. "Prepare to be destroyed, humans," Kethvar continued. "The attack will resume in 10 minutes. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Admiral Carter turned to his officers with grim determination. "Well, gentlemen and ladies, it looks like we get to die fighting after all," he said. "All ships, prepare for final battle. We may not win, but we will make them remember us." Jake closed his eyes and thought about Zarath. Had she tried to stop the attack? Had she spoken to her officers about cooperation and peace? It did not matter now. She had lost, and everyone on Crossroads Station was going to pay the price. But as the 10 minutes ticked by, something unexpected happened. The tactical display showed movement in the alien fleet, but not the kind of movement anyone expected. Instead of all 300 ships advancing to attack, the fleet was splitting apart. About a third of the ships were pulling away from the others. "What the hell is happening out there?" Admiral Carter demanded. Before anyone could answer, another transmission came in. This time, it was Zarath. But she was not on the bridge of her flagship anymore. She was in what looked like a smaller ship, and she was no longer wearing her ceremonial armor. Instead, she wore simple clothes, similar to what she had worn in the tavern. "Admiral Carter," she said. "I am Fleet Admiral Zarath Veltar, Crown, Princess of the Altarian Empire. I am contacting you from my personal vessel with a proposal that could save both our species." Jake's heart began to race. She had done it. Somehow she had found the courage to act. "What kind of proposal?" Admiral Carter asked, though he sounded suspicious. "A joint colonization project," Zarath said. "Instead of fighting over existing worlds, our species could work together to create new ones. Altarian biotechnology combined with human engineering could terraform dead planets into homes for both our peoples." The command center erupted in surprised voices. Admiral Carter raised his hand for silence. "That is an interesting idea, Princess. But why should we trust you? How do we know this is not some kind of trick?" "Because I have already paid the price for this proposal," Zarath replied. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see pain in her eyes. "I have been declared a traitor by the hardliners in my fleet. Admiral Kethvar now commands the ships that remain loyal to the old ways. They will try to complete the attack on your station." "How many ships does he have?" Admiral Carter asked. "About 200. I have taken 93 ships and their crews with me. They are the ones who believe there might be a better way." Jake could hardly believe what he was hearing. Zarath had split her own fleet rather than attack Crossroads Station. She had given up her command, her position, probably her right to inherit the throne, all for the chance at peace. "Even if we accepted your proposal," Admiral Carter said, "we are still outnumbered by the ships that want to destroy us." "Yes, Zareth agreed. But together our combined fleets might be able to defend ourselves while we prove that cooperation is possible. Admiral Carter looked around the command center at his officers. Jake could see the debate in their faces. Could they trust an enemy who had been trying to destroy them for months? But could they afford not to try when it might be their only chance for survival? Sir, Jake spoke up. I think we should listen to her proposal. Admiral Carter looked at him sharply. Morrison, you have been very interested in this alien commander. Is there something you want to tell me? Jake took a deep breath. He was about to risk everything, but it was time for the truth. Sir, I met Princess Zareth before today. Last night in the tavern. We talked for hours. I saw who she really is beneath all the military training and royal duty. She is not our enemy, sir. She is someone who cares about doing the right thing, even when it costs her everything. The command center fell silent. Admiral Carter stared at Jake with an expression that could have meant anything from respect to the promise of a court-martial. You spent the evening with the enemy commander and you did not report it? Admiral Carter asked quietly. Sir, at the time I did not know who she was. And after I found out, I thought she might be our only hope for peace. Admiral Carter was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned back to the screen where Zareth waited for an answer. Princess, you are asking us to trust you with the lives of everyone on this station and in our fleet. You are asking us to work with people who have been killing humans for months. Why should we believe this is not an elaborate trap? Because I am willing to prove my commitment, Zareth replied. I will transfer to your station with a small group of my advisors. If this is a trap, you can execute me and my people. If it is not, we can begin working together immediately. That is a hell of a risk for you to take, Admiral Carter said. Peace is always a risk, Zareth replied. But it is a risk worth taking. Jake stepped forward. Sir, I volunteer to be part of the team that escorts the princess to the station. Morrison, after what you have told me, I should have you arrested for treason. Maybe, sir. But if there is any chance this could work, someone needs to be there, who understands both sides. Admiral Carter studied Jake's face for a long moment. Then he made his decision. Very well, Princess. You may transfer to our station with no more than 5 advisors. Any aggressive action from your ships will result in your immediate execution. Do you understand? I understand, Zareth said. And Admiral? Thank you for giving peace a chance. An hour later, Jake stood in the docking bay watching as an Altarian shuttle approached. It was much smaller than the one that had brought the first delegation, and it carried no weapons. Through the transparent aluminum, he could see Zareth in the pilot's seat. When the shuttle landed and the hatch opened, Zareth stepped out alone. She had kept her word about bringing only a small group of advisors, but it seemed she had decided to come alone first. She walked directly to Jake, ignoring the dozen human soldiers who had their weapons trained on her. When she reached him, she stopped and looked into his eyes. You were right, she said quietly. There is another way. But it is going to be the hardest thing either of our species has ever attempted. Humans like hard things, Jake replied. We do our best work when everyone says something is impossible. Zareth smiled for the first time since he had met her in the tavern. Then perhaps we have a chance after all. Behind them, Admiral Carter approached with his diplomatic team. In the space around Crossroads Station, 2 fleets that had been enemies an hour before began the delicate process of learning to work together. It would not be easy. There would be setbacks and conflicts and moments when war seemed inevitable again. But for the first time in months, both species had something they had almost forgotten existed: hope for a future that did not end in the destruction of either race. Jake looked at Zareth, standing bravely in the middle of her former enemies, and realized that sometimes the most important battles were fought not with weapons, but with the courage to choose love over fear, cooperation over conquest, and hope over despair. The war was not over. It might never be completely over. But today, 2 people from different worlds had proven that even the deepest conflicts could be overcome when someone was brave enough to take the first step toward peace. And sometimes, that first step began with a kiss in a tavern between strangers. who discovered they were not so different after all.